we'll dive into some conversations tonight. So real quick, hold on. All right. Well, hello and welcome everyone on Pantheon Radio. Thank you all for tuning in as always. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you listening to us. I have to say I'm really humbled and just happy to be a part of this community. It has been just a ride, really, and one that I've enjoyed, and that's tough to come by. So I've had a lot of support come my way due to the Pantheon podcast and just trying to provide people with information, promote the game, and it's really just an awesome experience right now. So I want to reach out to every one of you right out the gate and just say thank you. Thank you for the support. Thank you for being a part of this. And hopefully, what we do here tonight, what we do in the future with the podcast isn't too boring for you. And hopefully you all enjoy it. I mean, I enjoy being a part of this. I enjoy doing this. And so if you have any feedback, suggestions, or ideas of how we can make this better in the future, feel free to throw those out. I'd be more than happy to hear those. We've got a few people that have come to me lately with some ideas, and I'm really looking forward to finding ways to, I guess you could say, implement them or use them in the future. So I've got some really, really neat ideas planned later down the road, but for now, we're just going to have kind of an open discussion to see where it goes. I've got myself, Dayhawk, and I've got a few others that are probably going to pop in here tonight just to hang out with us. It's nothing special, guys. It's just one of those nights where we're going to sit down, have a conversation, and just see where it takes us. With that being said, let me go ahead and just mention this real quick. Everyone on Pantheon Radio already knows about this, but everyone watching via Twitch or via YouTube later down the road may not know about this. Pantheon Radio is still going strong with the treasure hunt. So what that means is there's still $300 on the line. All you have to do to be a part of this is listen to Pantheon Radio Epic section. By the way, it's hands down my favorite section that Pantheon Radio has. I absolutely love it. I don't think I've heard of anybody over 5 words, maybe 4. I know I had somebody with 4, and I believe someone told me they had 5. Now, whether that's confirmed or not, I don't know. But again, I mean, I don't know where the top ranking guy is out there, but right now, there's a really good opportunity. You could jump in on this and find yourself with $300 of Amazon gift card at the end of it. So check out pantheonradio.com. In the top right-hand corner, there is a treasure chest. Click on that. It'll open up a page for the treasure hunt and tell you all the information you need to know, how to get involved, how to get entered. It's $300, guys. I mean, check it out. It's worth just a second of your time to check out. And then also go ahead, add pantheonradio.com as a favorite. Download the app onto your phone. Download the app onto your Android and enjoy it whenever you can. They've done a fantastic job with all of this, and I just can't thank them enough for allowing me to be a part of it. So again, check them out, guys. Try to get involved in the competition, the contest, the giveaway, whatever it is that they're doing. They do these things all the time. I've got a mug sitting right beside me from them, and I love it. So again, guys, just check this out. Really, really neat stuff. So let's go ahead and jump over here. We got Day and a few other guys that are hanging out. I'm going to see what they're doing. Day, you there, buddy?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, cool. So today I really didn't have an agenda. I just kind of got on, just so everyone's aware. This Friday, I'll be leaving for vacation. I'll be gone through the next week. So this will be the last podcast for probably about a week and a half or so. But with that, I didn't really want to go out on a bang or anything. I just wanted to have a conversation and talk about a few things that, again, what do we got to look forward to right now? That's kind of my gist, or the gist of my ideas, my thinking on a daily basis. What am I looking forward to hearing about? What am I looking forward to seeing? What's the next big reveal? What's the next big thing to come out that I'm excited about for Pantheon? And I know we've got the class reveals going on right now. We've read about that. We've heard about that. So we're looking to have class reveals coming in the next newsletter, the next newsletter, and the next newsletter to kind of get those wrapped up and out there, or at least that's the plan. And, for right now, I'm excited about that. That's great. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've been waiting on class reveals for 2 years, and I'm loving that we're seeing that. But I'm also curious, it seems like there's also a little bit of, I guess you could say, longing for more still. So I'm curious. My boat, I'll tell you right off the bat, I would personally love to see something to do with the world itself. I think for me, the world of Pantheon as a whole is probably one of the most interesting concepts about the game. The size of it, the scale of it, just everything going into it, the little bits and pieces we've seen, how do those look? Do I want to know every nook and cranny just before I get to experience myself? Not really. But I mean, I would like to see maybe a screenshot or two of some additional places and, just some teasers, if you will. That was just my thought. Like, I was just thinking about it today. I was like, man, what would I like to see after the class reveals? And now, Day, I mean, I know that you're waiting on the Paladin class reveal, and, that's first and foremost in your mind. But, I mean, what do you think? Do you think that that's asking too much right now to say, hey, I would love to see a screenshot or two of, maybe what future worlds, or even like a concept art kind of depiction of what maybe some of the future worlds might look like?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing like some of the concept art for just some of the other two continents, or concept art for different areas in them. Or I know they've talked about crafting before, and there's been a little thing here and there. It'd be nice to kind of see something, a video or something.
A video on crafting?
Yeah, like in game, kind of just get a gist of how it's going to be in game and stuff. I don't have to go into great detail and stuff, but just, like a little highlight of each of the crafting and stuff.
That'd be neat. Yeah, I can see that. So, what else have we not seen? I'm just trying to think through it. So we got crafting, which we've heard about crafting, but we've not seen it yet. That's going to be neat to see how that's going to be fully fleshed out and implemented. We've heard about harvesting, but I don't think we've seen that, if I'm not mistaken. So it goes along with crafting in my book. And we've got a lot of other things that are on the list of what makes Pantheon unique. The climate system. Ooh, we haven't seen. We've heard about it, but we haven't seen really that in play. We saw, I think, in one stream, if I'm not mistaken, in one single stream, we saw kind of a basic concept of it, and that was the last I saw of it, and that was 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm very, very curious about that, to see where that's at now. What else changed with that, how that looks and feels in the game.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing. I don't know how to describe it, but I'd like to see the different elements and stuff. Like, we've seen that one. But are we going to see like a sandstorm in the desert where maybe your accuracy goes down, your visibility goes down? What about areas that have strong winds, or dark areas, or like deep down caverns where oxygen might be limited? I'd like to see different areas like that.
Didn't Brad himself talk about the he talked about, if I'm not mistaken, like a hold on a second. Sorry. Apologize, guys. I had to turn that sound off there. But didn't Brad himself talk about I think it was tornadoes in the game, potentially, in one of his articles, his blogs?
I remember either reading or hearing something. It was way back, where you might come across a zone that might have like tornadoes that just rip through the area and stuff, or lightning bolts coming out and stuff. It reminded me of an area in one of the Final Fantasy games. I think it was maybe 9 or 10, where they had an area like that.
let's see here. I know Brad talked about it in one of his blogs. I know for a fact, and I've just got to find it. But regardless, it's one of those deals where I'm not going to stop, just to look at that. But I am going to say, like, I think that there's a lot of things out there that we've heard about that we haven't seen, and I'm really excited to think that what we have seen, I'm really enjoying. I'm really enjoying the idea of the game, and looks like the progression of it looks really, really nice. But I'm thinking I'm even still more excited about the possibilities, more than anything, of what we're thinking about adding on to that. So let's see here. We have situational gear. I don't think that was it. I believe it might have been within the features post that he had here. So Brad had a features post for new players and such. And I'm not going to try to read through. Brad really gives a lot of good quality posts. Which, by the way, what would you like to see Brad post about next? What would be a good blog topic for him to give us? I mean, if you had to think of something to ask him, what would you like to see Brad put a blog out about? That's a good question. I like that. Like, what do you think? Do you have anything off the top of your mind that you're just like, I would really love to hear from Brad himself, a blog on something like, within the game?
I've got two.
Okay.
One, I wouldn't mind seeing a blog post about just his idea of like traveling around, like
travel. Okay.
Ports, ships, mounts, routes, trade routes, those in general. How you get from one continent to the next, just not necessarily like this is what we're going to do, but just talking about them in general, and maybe somewhere along the lines of where they're thinking about or what they're, trying to decide on or something. Not anything set in stone though. And then the second thing I wouldn't mind hearing is just his thoughts on race creation, like creating new races for the future and stuff. Like what's their mindset and stuff. But that's kind of like a personal thing for me.
So you're thinking, okay. So, and to add on to that, I know I heard a comment from Brad during one of the streams as well. And I'm still over here looking for that stupid post, man. It's going to drive me crazy because I know for a fact in one of his blogs, he talked about that dynamic event with, sandstorms in the, within the zone and stuff. Just really cool stuff. Man, it's going to kill me. I'm going to have to find out later. But okay, let's see here. So let me just take that down real quick as a note. We had future races of, what you might potentially see coming down the road. What could be possibilities? Like, is there going to be some open, I guess you could say, some openings for potential future races, or do they think that those are something that are necessary within an MMO? I think that's a good question. That's a good way to put it. Are additional races necessary?
Well, I mean, if you look at if you don't go into lore, you don't read anything about the races, you just look at their pictures. They all look kind of humanoid across the board. It's where you actually go into the lore and the race details that you learn, they're slightly different. And then with the recent scar changes that they've talked about, makes you wonder, okay, we don't know what that's going to look like, but is like beast races going to be a potential along the lines down the road? Because remember, EverQuest had like cat race, they had the frogs, they had the lizard men, or some of those going to be kind of brought back, or are they just going to be like humanoid looking just with fur or something? I'd like to get his thoughts on future races or just race design in general. I mean, at this point, I don't know if that's something that they thought about going down the road, like future race ideas, but it'd be interesting to see their mindset for it.
That's a really good point. And I know that, like you said, with the scar, the recent information we have on the scar being changed more to a human look, that's a really good point. I mean, what possibilities, like for example, if we get a little bit down the road and they're creating just one additional race, something they can really dive into, make unique, are they going to stick with the current idea of that humanoid model so that they don't have to deal with the whole armor debacle and getting all the individual armor set up for them, or are they going to go out on a limb and try to really create everything for that class unique? Because that's what would end up having to happen. They would have to make the item sets unique to that race because they wouldn't fit correctly or something like that. So
yeah, I'm just going to throw this out there right now. If they want to make a lion man race that looks like a lion but has the humanoid model, but whenever they put the helmet on, the helmet is invisible, but they have this big giant mane. As long as they're paladins, I'm cool for
it. So what you're saying is when they put the helmet on, you just want a little maybe a little crown of the top showing at most?
Nah, just make the helmet invisible. It messes with the mane. I got to keep that hairdo.
Well, you know what though? I mean, in reality, what you could do is you could turn the helmet on or off,
Yeah.
The effect. I'm hoping at least. So yeah, I don't know. I like lions. I like tigers. I like those type of races. I mean, I think they have a really neat appeal to them. Okay. So what was the other one again? So we had the races, like future races. What could be possibility? Travel. Please no flying mounts is what King of Toxicity has here. Absolutely. I think we all agree on that. Or at least everyone that I've talked to. I'm a huge fan of no flying mounts myself. Personally, a huge fan of it. Now, when I say that, do I mean no flying mounts to get from okay, for WoW did this with the Griffins from city to city or something like that. Like for a fast travel type thing, you had a flying mount. Am I against that where it's basically you going from one point to the next without you being able to control it or do anything? I'm not really against that per se. I mean, it depends because if you have ports and stuff, I wouldn't mind seeing some travel like that instead of a port. Because at least you get to see the world, every time you travel like that. With a port, it's just instantaneous. You don't get to see anything. So I don't really see any difference between a port and that type of travel, flying at least, because it really has no interaction with the world. It's fast. It gets you there urgently. The only thing with ports is, potentially it has to be player driven. So, again, I don't know how that would look, but that would be the only kind of exception I can think to that the words. I cannot speak today, man. It's been all day. But anyways, so yeah, I think seeing the game as you're traveling over it is neat if you don't have control over it. If it's not a way of travel that's just how do you say this? If it's not the way you travel 100% of the time, like in other games. I'll use WoW as an example because everyone knows WoW as a good reference point. Using WoW as an example, the flying mounts, they really just take you out of the world. Once you get above the content, you don't fear the content. It has no value really. You're just skipping over a lot of content. It is neat that you get to see it. So having some sort of flight path that, I could maybe jump on the back of a griffin and fly from one city to the next or something. I don't mind that actually. I really don't, because I like seeing the world. And I think that if you're looking for fast travel to some degree, maybe there's something maybe it's a high cost. Maybe it's something that can only be utilized, every so often. I don't know. Maybe there's something that kind of makes it to where that's not something you would just use consistently all the time. But if you had something like that, I wouldn't truly dislike it, because again, if I'm getting on and I have a 2-3 hour play session, I don't necessarily want to spend 45 minutes of it running from place to place. Go ahead.
Well, here's my thoughts on the I won't call it the Griffins from WoW. We travel from one place to the other on the
okay,
Griffin,
yeah,
or even horses traveling from one city to the next. Is if you, with the information that we have available, and looking at the map that has been put out that we know so far, it doesn't look like there's going to be like smaller villages or towns. It's just going to be the starting cities. So with those systems, it wouldn't make sense to have that. So I think maybe leaning more towards maybe each continent might have one village that it acts like a dock that connects to different continents might be a better approach. Maybe a couple of those cities that are along the coast, maybe they have a small dock with a ship that goes to that city or something. But the Griffins flying from point A to point B and stuff like that, I don't really think we're going to see that just because of the information that's available right now. Because in WoW, you flew from one point to the next, but eventually the path could lead you from one city to the next, or a small village or a hamlet or some sort of system like that. I'm not seeing that with what's available right now.
Well, okay, I get that. I'm not sure. I don't see small villages or being a part of it. I know the map that we have on the website really doesn't give that information.
Well, I'm just saying, we don't know what's in the world right now. From
true.
What's out there right now, it doesn't lean towards there might be like little small outposts here and there or villages or whatever. Doesn't kind of lean that way. It leans more towards each starting city is a city, and then the rest of it's open world for exploration. I feel like it's like how it was in EverQuest, where the major cities are the only cities in the game. That's the feel that I'm getting. I mean, I'd like to see, other cities and races, cities and stuff. That'd be awesome. But from what I've seen so far, I just don't feel that.
So, okay. That's a good one. So, okay. So we got the travel and we got the future races. So, a little bit more information on travel. I know we've seen some information, but I think maybe just kind of asking him to elaborate on that would be really neat. And then looking at, potentially, again, I'm just going to throw a request out and, see if maybe he has time or the opportunity to speak on it. So I think it's really neat. So I'll throw those two out. I'll throw, hey, say, what would you think about future races? Do you see, anything besides humanoid being a possibility, or, travel? How do you see travel really working? I know that, again, with the travel, he talked a little bit about it in, I think, his matchmaking post. Talking a little bit about, matchmaking, like how they want to bring people together and stuff like that. And that's one thing I want to see personally is the matchmaking. He had if you read it, if anybody goes to the blogs on Pantheon MMO.com. So in Brad's blogs there, he has a matchmaking systems, what are we up to and why, part 1. So he talks a little bit about matchmaking in that, and it's a part 1. And he gives a little bit of ideas and things like that. So of what they would like to do, what they would like to implement within the game to help you find friends, not just find a group, but actually find friends within the game. So I would love to see a part 2 of that. I know I've heard a few other people say that, and I think that would be really neat to see him elaborate on that system, that idea, just a little bit more, dive into it, just even more so than he already did. And then again, so you have, let's see here. I think I'll skip over the rest of that. So, okay. Actually, there's one thing I wanted to bring up. I just remembered. What are we up to? That was the other thing about that post. So, as a part 1, the matchmaking system, and then what are we up to? What are we up to? Now, we've seen state of the game stuff before, mainly from like Joppa over the recent few, I guess you could say, like newsletters. We've seen a few newsletters. The last post, the last blog that we had from Brad, I believe was back in like November of 2017, excuse me. So early November. So it's been a few months. So this post that he mentioned, what are we up to? Like what's going on type thing. I would personally like to see kind of where we're at in Brad's eyes. And I know there's been little things here or there, but I would just like to see a filler from him, what he's experienced, what he's thinking, how he's feeling. Does it, is it bringing back, memories of, how he felt when they were looking at EverQuest, for the first time and things like that? Or, what kind of investment and feelings is he getting from everything right now as it's coming together? So that was kind of my thing. I would like to reach out for a kind of a personal note, if you will, to say, hey, how do you feel about everything? Are you feeling, again, I don't expect. I'll be honest with you, Day. I don't expect if I was to say, "Hey, Brad, how do you feel about everything that's going on?" I don't expect Brad to be just like, "Oh my God, it's terrible." I would never expect that. But I'm not saying because he wouldn't admit to that or he would hide that. I'm just saying I just don't see that in the type of personality he is. I can see it all being good, but I would like to see him kind of elaborate on, how things actually feel to him. Like, what's the emotion, in my opinion? Because that's really where I like to see the game developers' minds at, is where that passion and emotion's at, because that's when I know for a fact they're going to do everything they can to implement it the right way. Not just to get something out there just to get it out there, but they're going to do everything they can to make sure that it is done the right way. And so I would love to see just a post kind of following up on some of that passion, some of that, where we're at, how things are coming along, maybe a little bit more on the next steps, from Brad's perspective. And I know he has a team and people that are in place to do something like that, but man, it means a lot coming from Brad himself when I see a post like that or a blog or something. So, that's something that I would like to see personally. That's just, a dream, if you will.
Yeah, well, if we're talking about that level of questions, I've got a question that I wouldn't mind asking him if I was in a one-on-one situation. Ask me whatever you want.
Yeah, go for
it. EverQuest, I do believe Brad was well known for playing a paladin. Well, Joppa's the one that's over the class designs and stuff, as far as I know. So I would like to ask him from his point of view, not necessarily Joppa's or what they're doing in the game, but from his point of view, what does he want to see the paladins, what they are able to do, what their the abilities they might have, what's his thought on the paladin?
You know what? I'm not okay. I don't want to say that I think Brad played a ranger in EverQuest, and that was his main.
I think it was a paladin and a ranger.
No, well, here's what I think, and I might be wrong. You might be right. I might be wrong, but here's what I think. I think he played a ranger, but he did some Brad edits to the code that allowed him to actually utilize the paladin's epic weapon, the flaming sword, which is why he's so notoriously known for the green armor from a ranger standpoint with flaming swords.
Oh, okay. I just looked it up. He was a ranger, but was known for wearing paladin-like armor.
Okay. Yeah, I knew there was something about that was funny, but yeah, I was like, man, I'm pretty sure he was a ranger because I know I heard something here recently where he was excited about, the ranger class and getting to play that. Maybe we see that on stream or something here in the near future. That would be really cool. But yeah, but that's the same. But here's the same thing though. Even though, like you said, you see Joppa creating the class, that like Joppa and the guys that are putting together those thoughts for the paladin, for example, because that's, let's talk about your baby for a second here. So they're putting together your class, your baby, the one thing that you're going to be investing the most time and effort into, that you can, this paladin class, and you're thinking, I would like to know from somebody who is not quite right there in the mix of that, but has access to see how that's coming along and get kind of a feeler for what do they think from kind of an outside perspective, not really on the inside track of getting the ideas for that, but more on the outside, just knowing what's there and what they're looking at. Like, I think that's what I'm getting out of your mind. Is that correct?
No, I in my head I was thinking Brad was known for playing a paladin, and I was like, I would like to know what his thoughts were, but it was a ranger just that wore paladin armor. So, if there's someone on the team that's close to or as passionate as me for paladin, I would love to talk to them, be like, what's your thoughts on what you would like to see the paladin be able to do, not necessarily what y'all are doing.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. All right. Well, I think those are for a few good ones. We'll definitely I'll keep an eye out on any what do you call it? Any potential opportunities or things that I see come up in the future as well. And I'm like, hey, that would be really something neat. Because honestly, I don't think that these guys are too far out of reach when it comes to asking questions like that, or just giving an idea for, hey, I would love to hear more information around this. I really don't think these, I don't think Brad, I don't think Chris, I don't think Ben, I don't think any of these guys are really too far disconnected from the community or too far above going out there and giving some information out. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. I mean, VOT, for example, has Joppa and Justin joining them this Friday. So if you haven't already heard about that, let me go make sure I got that timeline correct. I believe it's at 7 Eastern time this Friday. Yeah. So anybody that's not aware, Pantheon Radio, or I'm sorry, not Pantheon Radio, but Voice of Terminus will be doing a live show, and they're going to be doing it. They're going to be hosting it on Pantheon Radio as well. So I know that I won't be streaming on Friday. I won't be doing the radio broadcast for everybody listening on Pantheon Radio, but don't worry. Voice of Terminus guys have got you covered. Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, instead of being 6 p.m., but at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, they're going to sit down with Joppa, and they're going to sit down with Justin himself. So Joppa being the creative director, and then Justin being the man himself who's creating the lore of Pantheon, really putting the world together and bringing this vibrant world to life in words so that the team can then go and really work off that to create the concept art, the visuals, how the flow of content and things work, and matching that up to a lot of what Justin, has in his mind as far as the lore goes, and making sure it all fits together and actually makes sense. So having Joppa and Justin in the same conversation, I'm sure that's going to be a blast. So for anybody that's curious or wanting to find that out, check that out. But again, I mean, we've seen so many. I mean, we've had Ronick, we've had Convo on this stream. Potentially we could have, future ones on here. We've had other people join with Basgrim, Joppa, and others, Synthos as well. Then VOT has had just a number of people. Kilson's jumped on another guild's opening for their website just to say hi and, show some community support. These guys are everywhere, and they're doing all kinds of really neat things, being involved in the community, getting information out there little by little. I mean, the information is just out there. It's just spread out. It's kind of a game. You have to go find it right now. But one of those things is, like I said, I don't think they're too far out of touch. Like, these guys are pretty receptive, in my opinion. I mean, you send them a tweet. I sent Justin a tweet on Twitter today. Somebody asked me a question about, was lore related. And so I pinged them, and I was just like, hey, Justin, hypothetically, if one was to say XYZ, what would you think? And he responded back in a few minutes and gave me just kind of I guess you could say, a rough answer to it. But it was enough to satisfy my curiosity for the time. Again, I see these guys as being very receptive, and that's really cool to see in a development team like this. So I'm very happy about that. But I don't think any question is too big. Throw it out there and see, hey, could we get a response on this? I think if you ask it in a respectable way, and it's not just, hey, when's the game going to be released? Give me a date. I think if you're asking some reasonable questions, you're probably going to get a response. You're probably going to get something back. And if you don't, then there's a reason for it, of course. But I would assume that majority of the time you'll get some sort of response, even if it's, I can't answer that right now. So I think that's really cool. So we'll see if we can pass some of those up. I mean, I personally, I would like to see just a little bit more on where we're at and kind of where we're going. Like, what's the next steps? I know that in the past here, we've seen a little bit of information on some of the testing that's happening and things like that behind the scenes. And, so they've given us a little information on the different phases. I guess they're going through that with those internal individuals. And then I guess, looking later this year, they're looking at bringing in kind of the next tier, the next pledge tier potentially, or even maybe early next year, something like that. But, it just really depends on the timelines and making sure that their goals are being met, making sure that the game's where they want it to be at, making sure that there's no major, roadblocks or nothing major that comes up or happens that slows progression down. So again, I would be curious to kind of get just a filler of, okay, where we at? And halfway through the year, where do we plan on being by the end of the year? Just like a little thing like that. So we'll see. I'm going to throw it out there. We'll see what happens. We'll see what comes back. I'll be tuned in to the Pantheon Voice of Terminus show on Pantheon Radio as well as on Twitch. So if you're going to check that out, go check that out. That's going to be on Friday again with Joppa and Justin. And that's actually Chris and Justin. I don't know why I always call... I never can say Justin's name, like his game name, so to speak. It's like Istamul, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. I apologize, Justin. If you ever watch these, I apologize. I refer to him as Justin because he's the only one that I know of on the team. But then you have Chris, again, who I refer to as Joppa just because he's more well known that way. So having those two on the stream together, speaking with the Voice of Terminus guys, I'm excited about that show. I think it's going to be a really fun show. Hopefully we get some of the questions that I'm kind of alluding to here answered during that time. So, let's see. I mean, like I said, I didn't really have an agenda tonight. I just want to kind of get out in here and talk. Anything you got on your mind?
Yeah, it just popped in my head listening to you say that. What would be kind of cool to see towards maybe the end of the year or right before Alpha starts? I'm currently playing Path of Exile. What Path of Exile does whenever a new league starts, generally shortly after or towards the middle of it, they release this post about the thoughts they went into it, some of the concept art, and what their mindset was for this league and what they wanted to achieve and stuff like that. It'd be kind of neat if, like, at the end of the year, right before Alpha starts, that not necessarily come on the show, maybe they can put together a video or something or a post even, where they talk about the year in review, what's gone on this past year, what things have changed, some things that they've talked about that they want to do. Maybe they hit some struggles along the way and they've had to make some changes, and this is now what they're looking at, just a year in review, a state of the game from a year's perspective. And then, about this time next year, maybe do it again.
Neat. I like that. I think they did it last year, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So towards the end of the year, I believe it was in November, that we saw a kind of wrap up, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Let's see. I was gonna check it out real quick just to see if I could find it.
Yeah, but I mean, they can go into, we revealed the classes, and this is, links to all the different posts about them and stuff. What challenges that they've had to face while doing them. They could do the same thing for races. They can talk about the world and the design and where they're at. There's tons of stuff that they can talk about, not necessarily things that, this is what's set in stone, but yet we haven't done a reveal on, but just, things that we've tried to do that didn't work out, and we've had to make some changes, and this is now what we're looking at, kind of like how they, with the scar, there's other mechanics that they've talked about that some of us feel that maybe that's changed from originally their mindset was. It'd be interesting to see a really good, post about this past year, what they've done, changes they've made, and what they're looking towards in the future, in the next year or whatever.
Yeah, really good. I mean, okay, so it was January they did a year in review for 2017. That's what I was thinking of. And yeah, but I agree with you. I mean, I think these reviews really just are great to do. Just for again, one of the things I found to be so true is there is so much information. They're releasing information on a monthly basis with the newsletter, but they're also releasing little things here and there through these streams that they're a part of. They're on the forums answering questions. I mean, if you follow these guys, if you go track them down and follow them on the forums, they're out there answering questions, and they're giving little bits of information here and there. They're providing information little bit by little bit throughout the year, and it doesn't seem like a lot. Don't get me wrong, I get it. Everyone wants more, and we consume information so quickly. I mean, it's ridiculous how fast the average player of an MMO, of a game nowadays, will consume information, will consume the game, consume all they need to know about it. They will just absorb it more or less. It's crazy. But if you go back, and one of the things that I thought was really neat, they did the January 2017 year in review. They've done kind of the state of the game. Hey, this is where we're at, and they give some information on that throughout the year. But those recaps are so vital, in my opinion, because it really highlights how much work and how much has been accomplished. That's something that people forget. As you're going throughout the year, as you're going, like there might be a day or two where there's not really a lot of new information. And then all of a sudden let's say they post a newsletter, and you have last month's newsletter, for example, has 3 class reveals in it. It has, a whole nother section. Let's see, we had 3 class reveals in that newsletter. We had, what else did we have in there? We had information on the orcs, within the game. A lot of information on that. Really good write-up. Some highlights about PAX East, a video from Baz himself. And then the community spotlight with Timmy. I mean, I love Timmy to death, so I loved reading that. But again, there was a lot of information there, to absorb. And it took maybe the better part of 2 hours for everybody to absorb this information. It probably took them days to get this all put together. And it took the better part of 2 hours for us to absorb it. It's tough, man. It's tough for, our hunger to be actually satisfied when it comes to these games, especially as we're watching this come together. If it was like release time frame and everything was there and we came into it fresh, man, there's probably weeks worth of information, weeks, maybe even months worth of information for us to absorb. But because we're so, early in the process here, because we're basically taking every little nugget of information and just right as it comes out, taking it in, really, it's hard for our expectations and our hunger to be met. So I really love those recaps. I love seeing the team kind of fall back and say, look, this is what we've given so far. And I know people are like, well, it's not enough. Yeah, it's never enough. But it's like, look, we've actually given a lot of really good information. Look at all we've done, accomplished. And, to show some of those, that stride, that progress that's been made is really neat. So I love the recaps. I love the state of the game addresses. I love the way forward. Here's like you said, here's what we ran into. Here was some of the, not maybe some of the issues, but here were some of the roadblocks, the hurdles we had to get over. Here's some of the things that we're looking to accomplish or get over in the future. And, this is kind of where we're at, and this is where we would like to go. And I don't need really a timeline on it, for example, but I like the rough timelines they give as of now. I think those are fair. I just, for me, I would love to see just kind of that recap. Here's where we're at. Here's what happened. Here's where we're going. And, that would be good enough for me, personally. I know not everybody's in the same boat as me, but that would really be good enough for me.
Yeah, when it comes to some of the information in the newsletters, I personally choose not to read it. Like the orcs and the ratmen that came out, I clicked on it and scrolled down, saw the art and stuff, but I personally chose not to read a lot of that information because I don't want to spoil myself. I'd rather wait until I get in the game to learn a lot of the lore based stuff. But I've personally delved into the paladin lore and a little bit of the human and a little bit of the world lore, just so I have an idea of my class and where they stand and stuff. But a lot of that information, I don't want to consume it because I want to get in the game and experience that.
That's fair. Can I just say this as a point though? And I know this may not be the thing people want to hear because not everybody's into the lore and things of that nature. But I just want to make this point real quick. So even though we don't have all the information at our fingertips right now, I'm not opposed to this. I don't mind this, actually. I like learning things like you do as well, Day. I like learning it in the game. I like knowing enough to where when I get into the game for the first time, I have an educated start to things, which I think is what they're giving us with the reveals, which is great. I'd love to see it stay there. And I would love to discover the rest of it in the game. However, can I just say that I have talked to more people here recently who are telling me the same thing. Man, there is no information. There's no information. There's no information. There's no information. There's no information. And I'm like, okay, well, have you just, read the information that's there? Yeah, I've read it all. I'm like, okay, great. So you read the lore. How'd you like that? I didn't read that. Okay, well, that's a lot of information. There's a lot of stuff in there that may become relevant. Like I've said before, the lore in Pantheon seems to be a very influential piece of the game. Now, whether you choose to read it or not is completely up to you. But I'm personally in the boat of, man, don't come complaining to me about there's no information out there if you're not willing to read all the information that's available to you as of now. Like, just because you want one specific piece of information that may or may not ever be available to you on the website itself, I'm kind of at the point now where I'm like, man, unless you've read all the lore and unless you've absorbed all the different blogs that Brad's posted, unless you've gone out and read every newsletter to pull out all the additional lore, all the additional information that's in those newsletters out, the state of the game information that's in there, that's the only place it's posted. Like, Joppa's put state of the game information in these newsletters, and there's some really good information. There's some kind of insight to what's going on, and it's still relevant even now. But unless you've read all of this, like, I'm kind of at the point where it's why are you telling me that just because you don't have the warrior class reveal, there's no information on anything? And then once you get the warrior class information or reveal, and you only see 20 abilities out of the maybe hundreds that are available to you in the game or something like that, then I know for a fact you're going to complain even more. So I'm just saying, guys, it's one of those deals where I hear it every day. I really do. I hear it every single day. There's nothing available. And I'm like, have you even looked? No, but okay. That's all I need to know. Thanks.
Yeah, there's information out there if you're willing to take the time to look. I got a buddy of mine who was in the same boat. Like, as soon as new information drops, he reads it, and then he's like, okay, that's great. And then like a week later, he's like, is there any new information? There's like no information. And I'm like, I sent him like a couple of the links to some of those blogs that Brad wrote. He's like, did he just post this? I was like, no, man, these are like dated back months.
Yeah,
like there's a ton of them. I pointed out on the forums where he can find them, and he was like, "Man, there's a lot of them. I ain't got time to read all this." And I was like, "Well, if you wanted more information, there you go.
Right?
There's a ton of information in there."
Well, and that's so funny though. That's the same thing I've heard as well. It's like, oh my goodness, man, look at all this. I don't have time to read all of that. I'm like, well, then why are you complaining about there's no information? There's obviously more information than you're willing to take time to consume. Like,
yeah.
No,
I mean, like trying to go through the forums itself and go into different categories and dig through all those posts and stuff. Yeah, you can find some posts in there you can respond to. You can see some of the things people are talking about, but like you can see Brad's post if you just scroll down, and I don't know exactly how to describe it, but like they're all there. And they're pretty good read.
Yeah,
they're worth reading. I've read most of them.
Oh yeah, no, I took the time to read them all. I got intrigued. I read one and I was like, wow, this is really good. So just for anybody who wants to know that's listening via Pantheon Radio or on Twitch or on YouTube later down the road, if you have access to the Pantheon forums, which you should, go to pantheonmmo.com, click the forums button in the top right hand corner. If you go to the forums, I know it's kind of weird. It's kind of a funny way to get there. But if you click on in the left-hand side on the navigation bar within the forums themselves, you'll see Pantheon forums there. It's a hyperlink in the top left. If you click on that, it'll bring you kind of to a member page, kind of a wrap-up of your, I guess, say recent forum topics, newest members, like things like that. Show you kind of who you are. And at the bottom of that, there's news and announcements. That's how I get to it personally. I don't know a different way to get to it. But
yeah, I'd log in, click on forums. It gives me not necessarily the root forums, but like a forum panel is what I think of it. And it shows you a couple of the recent posts, and then you scroll down. There's all the blogs from him, from Brad, and then after that, it's like new people who's joined, people change their photo profile pics, stuff like that. That's where I found all those posts.
You know what? I'm gonna do one better for you, and I think this is I want to say this is available publicly. Let me double check before I give it over. But so if you go to Brad's, let me double check here. Oh, you need to sign in. Okay, if you have an account, for those members who are signed up for pledge for Pantheon at some degree and have access to the forums, if you have an account, if you can log in, do this. Go out there, go to Brad's profile, and within his profile on the right hand side, you will see a section for blogs. He has 31 of them out there. 31 blogs. Have at it. Read them all. There is not one that I have read which I regret reading. I mean, they are all worth a moment of your time just to read through. Really, really neat information. Like I said, I was talking about the storm giants and, you know, the different environment effects and things like that. You can find all that within the blogs. But again, that's just some insider information for you all that are out there that are pledged to Pantheon that have access to the forums and have signed up. If you haven't already signed up and you're interested, you know, it's there. And there's information out there, guys. So if you're looking to sign up, if you're looking to get access, I know there's a way to get access to the forums. So do yourself a favor, grab access to the forums, go out there, you know, and check out all the blogs that Brad's posted. Again, they're out there, but then more of in a public forum. This is something I'm actually a little guilty of myself, Day, and I know that, you know, I still have to go out there and listen to a few more things as well, but you have different podcasts that have been done. We had the one with MMORPG here recently. We had streams. We have streams galore. And I know I get it, people. I get the same information all the time. You know, so-and-so didn't do too great in the stream, and I don't want to watch it because it was boring. Here's the deal. If you're actually looking to gather information about Pantheon, watch the stream and enjoy it, of course, because, you know, why not? But also watch the stream for the information provided, for the conversation. Listen to Brad's conversation, his feedback, his, you know, what he's talking about. Listen to what Joppa's got to say. Listen to what these guys, you know, how they're talking about the game, how they answer questions, and enjoy the video, of course, but listen, because there's a lot of conversation that happens. There's a lot of information in those streams that is being shared that's very, very useful, very good for anybody that's looking into Pantheon. And there's hours of streaming content out there available to watch and to listen to. So, you know, I don't know how many videos they have out there now. It's probably like 20 or so at least. Go out there, check those videos out. There's a ton of information available. You just got to be willing to dig a little bit for it. But again, it's there. In the meantime,
there's a lot of unsaid information too. If you've been keeping track of all the different streams for me, it's been the past year and a half. The UI has changed.
Yep.
There's a lot of information you can gather just from watching the different streams. You know, at one point, like the boss and debuffs were up in the top right corner. Another time they were down in the bottom. Now it looks like that's fully adjustable. Like you can move that wherever you want. You can resize it however you want. And it's just not this invisible bar box with just this very thin line around it. It's got like a see-through black background, so you can actually in more detail see how, you know, how big it is and how far you stretch it out and stuff. There's tons of unsaid information just from watching the streams.
That's actually a really good point. That's a very, very good point. Yeah, absolutely. There's like I said, there's a lot of information out there, and if you're willing to take the time to look for it, it's there. It's available to you. On top of all of that, there is, I guess you could say, there are content creators out there that are out there trying to break some of this information down to you. Voice of Terminus does a great job. They've been doing it forever. You know, checking those guys out, listening to some of their theory crafting ideas, things like that. Listening to us ramble about just nonsense. A lot of times we try to bring some information to light that you might not be aware of. And like you said, I think you mentioned that you had a friend that didn't know about the Brad blogs. You know, I think it was it you I was talking to, Dave? But it was somebody the other day I was talking to, and it was just simply something that was seen in the stream, like in 2016, where it was about zones. You know, it's going to be a hard zone line, and it's something that you can. Well, it's something that is so easy to overlook in these streams, like stuff like that. Even I do it. It's so easy to overlook some of these small details, and then all of a sudden, when someone points it out to you, you're just like, "Oh, it's right there. It's right in front of me. How did I miss it?"
See, you've got, like, for me, it was like, okay, you say open world, but you need to kind of classify that, because then you have like Guild Wars, which to me is kind of like how EverQuest was. You get this big zone, but you have these points along the edges that let you transition into the next zone. Then you have like Vanguard, where you could easily just walk from one zone to the next with almost no loading screen. And then you have games like Arcade, where you just run through the zones and it's open world. Like, what extent was my main question, you know?
Yeah.
Because they just say open world, but in today's market, you kind of got to classify exactly what you mean by that. You know, open world to me would be like Arcade. You can just run from one zone to the next. There's no loading screens, none of that. You just run through them. The little text box pops up when you cross from one zone to the next, lets you know you're in a different region. That to me is open world. Big giant zones where you transition from one zone to the next and you got a loading screen, that to me is not open world. That's zones. But that's my point of view.
I mean, and again, yeah, it's absolutely fair. It's like the little things that you miss. So very, very curious to see. Hopefully our rambling helps somebody go, oh, maybe there's something out there that I didn't think about or didn't know about. I think one of the things that I'm going to try to do when I get back, so I'm going to be on vacation, guys. I'm going to kind of wrap this up here. We're getting close to the hour mark. And one of the things that through my ramblings today, I'm hoping that is highlighted is there's a lot of information out there for everybody to go look at. So I'm going to be off for a week and a half. I'm not going to be here doing a podcast on Friday. I won't be here next Wednesday or next Friday. I'll be on vacation. I apologize, but I got to get away and go drink on the beach. So, you know.
Work on that wife faction.
Yeah, exactly. Got to go make the wife and kids happy so I can get back to doing podcasts and just focus on that when I come back and have fun with stuff, you know, involving the Pantheon community and other things that are going on. But again, I would like, you know, to hopefully highlight there's a lot of information out there. There's information that it's coming out there. You have Voice of Terminus on Friday. Potentially, I think the next newsletter is probably going to drop next Wednesday. So you're going to have information out there available to you. But one of the things that I want to try to do when I get back is getting better at highlighting where this information's at for some people, really answering some questions that people have, pointing them to the right location, giving them some references to look at, some additional breakdowns of different streams and stuff. Like, I'm going to try to go back and look through some of the old stuff that I've done. I've looked through in the past 2 years and bring some of that back to light, you know, highlight some of that information that's kind of been forgotten as of now and see, hopefully, if that helps some of the newer folks that are looking at a Pantheon, or even some of the people that have never heard of Pantheon that are going to look into it for the first time, you know, after seeing, you know, one of our streams or hearing one of our podcasts or something like that. So we'll try to do a better job on this show, this podcast, whatever you want to call it, of highlighting some of that stuff. It's not going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. I like to keep these free flowing, you know, fun, but I can only do so much to make it fun. I'm just, you know, I'm only so fun, guys. I'm only so fun. And so, you know, any ideas, again, I said it at the beginning, I'll say it now. Any ideas you have for the show in the future, anything you would like to see us do, any questions you would have, please post them below in the comments on the YouTube videos that we have. I'll try to get better answering those, especially live during podcast. We'll try to do things differently to give more information to people. But again, I'm hoping that people are happy with what we're offering now. and that when we continue to get better at this, it only helps. So on that, thank you all on Pantheon Radio for tuning in and hanging out with us and joining. And for everybody on Twitch, you can hang out for just a minute with me. I'm going to jump in P99 here in just a second, so you're more than welcome to hang out and talk then. But I'll be right back. And again, thank you all for hanging out.